Alhamdulillah, wa salat, wa salam ala wa rasulullah. Welcome to our series entitled Diluting, Wala wal Bara. And this is a great series that I am enjoying teaching. It's based on the book written by Sheikh Kareem Abu Zaid. And for those of you who have not yet purchased the book, you want to head over to Amazon.com and pick up a copy of the book. That's how the book looks. It's entitled Diluting, Wala wal Bara by Sheikh Kareem Abu Zaid. And that's a picture of Sheikh Kareem Abu Zaid. The book is the blue Arabic in the background with the gray. The book is only $19.99. And again, the money that you spend on this book will go to help with the other projects that Sheikh Kareem Abu Zaid is doing, and he's involved in a lot of projects for the Muslims today, trying to get the correct belief system out there to the Muslims, because we get so caught up in politics. We get so caught up in other worldly things. And again, all of our deeds, all of our efforts are null and void if our Aqidah, our belief system, is not correct. Now, let me answer a question before I start my lecture today that one of the young brothers, let me find that question. He just typed it. In fact, let me click here to make sure I got the connection to everybody. Let me see. Let's see what pops up. Okay, we're streaming simultaneously on Twitch. Twitch is connected. Alhamdulillah. I'm streaming on D-Live. D-Live is connected. I'm streaming on Trovo. Trovo is connected. And of course, I'm on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and also LinkedIn. Also, I am connected to Rumble. Let me see. Rumble here. Rumble. I'm also connected to Odyssey. Okay, mashallah, Odyssey. So good job. That was my roll call of streams. So I see we're live, so I can see your questions. Now, one of the brothers here, this is a new user who's just started joining my classes. He's asking me, Sister Layla, Ustada, he's saying, Ustada Layla. He said, Ustada Layla, is it true that whenever we speak about the religion, it should always be Tawheed? And I don't understand what he means by that question, really. He's typing more. Let me see what he's typing, because I really want, what do you mean, Tawheed? Wait a minute. Yeah, I can answer you while I let the, and by the way, guys, while he's typing the rest of his question, don't forget that the Islam Q&A show, today is Friday. This is the day that you can join here at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and ask me your questions about Islam. And you can get the answers based on Quran and Sunnah with the understanding of the companions from me. And if there's a question I cannot answer, I will not hesitate to call Sheikh Abu Utayyib, who is a true scholar of the ulama, and he can answer the question for you. And also we'll have Dr. Ibrahim Jamali. He's always around and pops in, and he can answer as well. He's amongst the circle of scholars that you guys come in here in America. Yes, Dr. Jamali is of the circle of scholars here in America. He's also one of the members of AMJA. Okay, so if he can't, between him and Sheikh Morsi, we can get your questions answered. Everybody got that? Okay, his question is it true? But that's 9 o'clock. I'm going to answer this question to allow other people to join in who are asking me to wait for them because they don't want to miss the class. Hold on. I did something. Okay, yeah, y'all can see. He said what he means is it true? He said he was listening to a lecture, and one of the brothers whose books I teach from, oh, I don't teach but from two people's books. He said one of the brothers whose books I teach from made the comment, that when we talk about Islam, it should always be about Tawheed. Okay, I still don't understand your question, but to answer your question, you know, when you talk about Islam, you can talk about whatever you want to, but maybe what you heard is that Islam is based on Tawheed. Tawheed is the foundation of Islam. Maybe that's what you heard the brother say. Tawheed is the basis of Islam. Everything begins with, everything ends with Aqidah, Aqidah, Aqidah. I tell you guys all the time, we can talk about Islam all day long and all night long. But if your belief system is not correct, you got issues. You know, so maybe what you heard the brother say is that we need to emphasize as dawah, people like myself who are callers to Islam, you know, we can talk about whatever, but always reinforce to the listeners the importance of assuring that their belief system is correct. That's probably what you heard somebody say. If it's somebody who I promote, that's probably what they say, what they said. If it's someone that Layla promotes. But if you're asking me, can we only talk about Tawheed? No, we can talk about sex. We can talk about marriage. We can talk about anything in Islam. But understand that as an individual Muslim, you need to constantly you need to regularly check yourself to make sure that your belief system is correct. Otherwise, it doesn't matter what good deeds you're doing or how much you think you know this deen, ain't nothing accepted from you. You got that? So I hope that answered your question because I really didn't understand it. But anyway, just to remind everybody, tonight is the Q&A show. Save all other questions about other issues other than this topic that I'm getting ready to teach now for 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay? So with that said, let's get started. In this book, Diluting, Bara, we are studying now chapter 9. And I really like this chapter because in this chapter, Sheikh Karim Abu Zaid is taking us on the journey of how to develop love for Allah and how to develop allegiance to Him. Also, how to develop love for the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and how to develop allegiance to him. And this is what's hard, because it's easy for us to say that we love Allah. It's easy for us to say that we have love for the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But if you look at how we're living our lives, look at the decisions and choices that each and every one of us are making in our personal lives, you can see that we're lacking, that we probably really don't have any love or for Allah or for his Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yesterday, in this chapter, we talked about how things we can do to develop love for Allah. Who can tell me what are some of the things that we discussed yesterday that if we do them on a regular, consistent basis, they will help us to develop our love and allegiance for Allah? Who can give us some suggestions that we talked about yesterday, that if we do these things, they can help us to achieve love and allegiance to Allah, for Allah? Anyone, take the mic, please. And do not leave me hanging here long. Yeah, they disappoint me. These are my students. They just disappoint me every day. Every day. Let me go in here and call them out. That's a shame. Sister Norto, what is something that we can do to develop our love and allegiance for Allah? Okay, go ahead, Tony. Speak louder. We couldn't hear you.
Learning about Islam. This is Amira, by the way.
MashaAllah, the children always come to the rescue of these adults who can't answer questions. Exactly. One of the things that we talked about yesterday that we should do on a regular basis, and if doing it on a regular basis will not only develop our love for Allah, but also our allegiance to Him, is to learn about Him, to get to know Him. And how do we learn about Allah? Who can answer that? How can I learn about Allah? What must I study? Or what should I study that in turn will teach me about Allah and bring me closer to Him? Anyone?
His names and attributes.
MashaAllah. Good job, Shamsa. Exactly. We should learn and study Allah's names and Allah's attributes. By doing that, this will help us and pondering the meaning of them will help us to develop a connection to Allah, will help us to develop love for Him and allegiance to Him and a commitment to Him. MashaAllah. What else can we do that will help us to develop our allegiance and love for Allah? Anyone else? What are some more things?
We also talked about relying on Allah and also pondering His creations like the mountains and the trees and stuff like that.
MashaAllah. Exactly, guys. And this is one of the most effective ways of developing your love and allegiance for Allah. Ponder the creation around you. Look at the mountains. How the mountains are in total submission to Allah. How they're Muslim. The mountains are Muslim. Look at the trees, how the trees submit to Allah. They do what Allah created them to do. They're Muslim. Look at how the animals are even Muslim. That's what Muslim means, to submit to Allah. So a great way to develop love for Him, a great way to develop your allegiance for Him is by pondering His creation and seeing how all of Allah's creation is in submission to Him except man and jinn. We're the only two of His creation that dares to defy Him. Subhanallah. Sister Sakina, she said another thing we can do. Oh, the same thing. She said, study the names and attributes of Allah. And also, she said, perform the voluntary deeds. Perform the voluntary prayers and the voluntary fast. She says doing this will help us to develop love and allegiance to Allah. And mashallah, Sister Sakina is correct. She's correct, guys. This is what I think something that we can do. You want to learn how to train yourself to love Allah. Do the voluntary deeds. Because you know that this is something that Allah likes, and that in turn will help you to develop your allegiance to Him and love for Him. Any other suggestions? Anyone else? What else can we do?
Yeah, also to love what Allah loves and hate what He hates, and to teach yourself that wait, I lost it.
Exactly, to train yourself to love the things that Allah loves. And to only hate the things that Allah hates. And what are the things that Allah loves? Who can tell us? What are the things that Allah loves? What things? Huh?
Allah loves anything that He made lawful, and He hates everything that He made haram.
Exactly. Allah loves everything that He made lawful. So I'm going to tell y'all something. When Sheikh Morsi became my teacher, when I first started learning the deen from Sheikh Morsi, and that was back in the 90s. Yeah, that was back in the 90s when I had Sheikh Morsi come in here and teach me the deen. When Sheikh Morsi started teaching me my aqidah, to make sure the basics of aqidah, that's one of the first things that he taught me, and that's why it stays with me, because I had a habit, a very bad habit of always saying, I hate this, I hate that. I hated the snow. I hate the snow. I hate the rain. I hate the sun. I hate. And I remember one day Sheikh Morsi said, you have to stop that. He said, perhaps you hate something that Allah sends a lot of good through. He said, Layla, you have to work on training yourself to love everything that Allah loves and to only hate the things that he hates. And I said, what do you mean? He said, Allah sends the snow as a means of cleansing the earth. The snow also beautifies the earth. And he started talking about it. I was like, yeah. So the snow is good. The snow is clean. So how can you hate anything that's good and clean? And I got his point then. So I stopped saying, I hate the snow. I hate the rain. I hate. I started training myself to say, to be in sync. I love everything that Allah made lawful. I dislike eating peanut butter, but I'm not going to say I hate peanut butter because it's good and clean. It's lawful. It's good protein. You know, we have to train ourselves, guys, to keep our personal likes and dislikes out of things. And if we do that, that becomes a great way of strengthening our relationship with Allah and also developing love and allegiance to him. Okay, another thing we can do is to give in charity to those who are in need. Yes, that's a voluntary deed. Allah loves the voluntary deeds, to give in charity, to make the voluntary prayers. These are ways to develop the love of Allah. And so that's what we spoke about yesterday. Things that we can do to develop our love for Allah. Today, we're going to speak about how to develop love and allegiance for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Just like you can't see Allah, you can't touch Allah, you can't feel Allah. And that's why it becomes hard to believe in something and have allegiance to something that you can't taste, feel, or see. The same with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You don't know him. You haven't met him. So how can you develop a love for someone that you've never met, someone that you've never seen, someone that you can't touch, you can't feel? Well, we're going to talk about that today. So let's put the PowerPoint up on the screen. Okay, let me share my screen. And here's the PowerPoint. Okay, inshallah, everybody should be able to see. Okay, so this is session 22 of the book. And again, for those of you who have not yet bought the book, that's a picture of the book in the background there. Today, and this is chapter 9. We are still in chapter 9. We will begin with the section that speaks about how to develop allegiance and love for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is going to be the center of tonight's lecture. Okay? Things that we can do that will help us to develop allegiance to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we have to remember that love and allegiance to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, just like love and allegiance to Allah, is an obligation. What does that mean? That means you will never be a true believer. You can call yourself a Muslim all you want to, but you will never be a believer until you love the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and maintain allegiance to him. So what are some things we can do that can help in that? Okay, well, number one, embrace the legality of his sunnah, his example. What does that mean? That means accept the reality that we are obligated as Muslims to follow his example. We have to obey the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We are obligated to obey him. Remember, Allah says in the Quran, in the interpretation of the meaning, "O Muhammad, we have not sent you as a guardian over them." Allah didn't send the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a guardian. He sent him as someone to be obeyed, as someone to be listened to and obeyed. So by obeying the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this entails accepting everything he taught us, accepting all actions he taught us, and approving everything that he told us of. You know, this is how we demonstrate our love and allegiance to him. And remember, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was not sent as just an observer over us, but a guide and an example for us, for those of us who are sincere and wanting to earn the love of Allah. So again, look around the world right now. Look what's happening in many of the Muslim lands right now. You have a lot of Muslims claiming to have love for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But talk is cheap. Look what they're doing. They call themselves celebrating his birthday. And I already told you guys, one of the last sentences the Prophet said before he died was, "May Allah curse the Jews for what they did to my brother Jesus. Do not do to me what they did to Jesus." So if you love the Prophet, you would obey him. What are you celebrating? The fact that you're celebrating a birthday, which is an act of worship, shows you have no allegiance to him, no love for him, because you're not obeying him. By obeying the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this means that we're adopting everything he said, everything he did, his teachings and his way of life. To violate what the Prophet says, to violate what the Prophet taught sallallahu alaihi wasallam, shows you have no love for him and no allegiance to him. So one of the ways to develop love for the Prophet is start living your life in accordance to what he said. Pray the way he commanded you to pray. That means put down your madhabs. Put down your fatwas from Islam Q&A websites that are based on madhabs. Get rid of that and find a teacher, a bona fide qualified teacher that can teach you the sunnah, the true sunnah of the Prophet, not the sunnah of Imam Malik, not the sunnah of Imam Hanbali, the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because those imams followed the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but their message got messed up. And is getting messed up even worse today. All right. So find a bona fide teacher that can teach you what the Prophet said, what the Prophet did, not what Imam anybody else did. Okay. And then you wouldn't celebrate birthdays and stuff. Okay. Also, another way to develop love and allegiance for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the same as with the law. Get to know him. How can you love somebody that you don't know nothing about? And unfortunately, guys, most Muslim children today can't answer basic questions about the Prophet because their parents didn't teach them, because their parents don't know basic answers about him. We need to study his life, study his teachings. This will cause you to admire him. This will cause you to love him. When I do my series on the heroines of Islam, that's one of the most popular classes here because it's teaching you. Look at you. Most of you are developing a love for the Prophet and a love for his companions, his wives, because I'm teaching you about them. You're hearing his struggles. You're hearing their struggles. You're able to see how gentle he was, how understanding he was, and how kind he was with each and every wife. Even though he had more wives than any of you men today, each wife felt loved. Each wife knew she was special. So by studying his life, you become inspired. And that's how you develop a fondness for him. Remember, Allah tells us in the Quran, in the interpretation of the meaning, or is it that they do not recognize their prophet, so they deny him? That's the case today. Muslims don't recognize anything about the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's why they celebrating his birthday. That's why they're innovating. That's why his sunnah is not adhered to. That's why Muslims today are taking answers from Islam Q&A websites instead of answering like I do with the hadiths. There's only a few people. I listen on YouTube to a lot of y'all hop around. I got a lot of YouTube hoppers. A lot of you hop around from YouTube channel to YouTube channel, listening to this person, listening to that person. And the people y'all listening to ain't about nothing. Because ain't none of these people answering your questions with the hadith. They're all using either Islam Q&A fatwas, or they're using their own opinions, or they're using what they heard from their sheikh. I don't hear any of them answering with nothing but the Quran and the authentic hadiths. I don't hear any of them giving you examples like I give you. When y'all ask me about marriage, y'all ask me about divorce, even sex, I'm answering you with what the prophet did, what his wives, his wives said, what his companions said. I don't hear that many people doing that. Not in English. Not in English. I hear some Arabs doing it in Arabic, but not here in America in English. So we have to be careful. This is why we innovate. We have to get to know the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Lacking knowledge of him and his life will hinder you from being able to comprehend and embrace his message. That's common sense. The people innovate because they don't know. They don't know anything about the prophet. They don't know what he did. They don't know what he said. They don't know that before he died, he told the people, don't do to me what they did to Jesus. They don't know that he never celebrated his birthday. They read that hadith about him fasting on Mondays. And they're so stupid, they think they're celebrating a birthday because they don't know the whole hadith. The prophet said, I don't just fast on Mondays. I fast every Monday and Thursday. Not just because it's the day I was born, but also because these are the 2 days in which Allah looks at our deeds. And when I fast on Monday because it's the day I was born, it's my way of thanking Allah for bringing me into this world. The prophet wasn't celebrating himself. He was celebrating Allah. But Muslims are too stupid to know that because we don't have the intelligence. Okay? So this is why Muslims innovate. This is why they deviate, because they don't know anything about our prophet and his life. If we learned about him, we would know that there is no question that any of you living on this planet today can ask about Islam that our prophet has not already addressed. I prove it to y'all every Friday. My Q&A proves it. Okay? There is no question that any human being on this earth can come up with today that has not already been addressed by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions. Remember, he perfected the religions that came before him, and he completed his mission. He's the only messenger of Allah that completed his mission. And everybody else's too. Not even Abraham did that. Not even Moses alayhi salam did that. So that means that there's no need for you to look for fatwa online websites. Okay? And I prove that to y'all every Friday in my Q&A classes, because all my answers are based on what the prophet said or his companions. And that's it. I don't never use a fatwa, and I don't use no 4 imams ever. Okay? So if we learn about him, we will know that that he impacted us, and his impact on humanity is for all times, not just for then. Okay? So this is one of the best ways to learn to love him, is by learning about him, his life, his struggles, his commands, his teachings, all of that. Also, another way to develop allegiance to the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is to send blessings upon him. And this is something that I am often having to remind my students. Whenever you hear the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam's name mentioned, you should say, move your tongue and say, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because that's sending blessings upon him. Okay? And when we send peace and blessings upon him, listen to what Ibn Masud said. He said, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, verily, Allah has angels who walk the earth, listening to the conversations of the believers. And whenever the believers send peace and blessings upon me, they come and convey those greetings to me. So whenever we say sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the angels of mercy around us, they go back up to Allah and tell Allah what we were doing. And in turn, they shared that news with the Prophet that another of your ummah sends blessings upon you. Because where is the soul of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? The soul of all the prophets are in the form of green birds flying around the throne of Allah. So the angels not only go and tell Allah what we did here, but they'll say, and by the way, Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Sister Lailanasheeba and her Sunnahfollowers website, they all send greetings of peace upon you. And it'll pay off, because on the day of judgment, if you or I have to do any time in hell, we'll come out through his intercession. In turn, he will intercede and say, oh Allah, she used to send blessings upon me every time my name was mentioned. Allow her out of that hellfire. So I want everyone here to get in the habit of saying sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even if you mutter it just to yourself, which you should, whenever you hear his name mentioned, and teach your children that. Also, we have another hadith where the companion said, we asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how do we send blessings upon you and your family? And the Prophet said, say, oh Allah, send your grace upon Muhammad and the family of Muhammad as you have sent it upon Abraham and the family of Abraham. What supplication is that, guys? This is part of the tashahhud. This is part of the tashahhud. Every time we recite atayatullahi, this is part of the tashahhud. This is the second half of it. Some of you refer to it as the dual sharif. You're sending peace and blessings upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his family. That's why you need to learn that tashahhud. It should be recited in the second sitting and the last sitting of every prayer. Okay? So those two hadiths emphasize the significance of sending blessings upon our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the people who do it are people who show their love for him. Okay? And remember, we have another hadith whereas the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told the companions to establish love amongst each other. And he said one of the best ways to do that is by giving the greeting to each other. So not only does assalamu alaikum, okay, not only is that a supplication that we're giving each other, but it's building love between us. And then when you take it further and send your greetings upon the prophet too, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, mashallah. Even if you got to do a second in the hellfire for a sin, you coming out, as long as you didn't die upon shirk, you coming out. Subhanallah. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would do everything to get you out. And again, we learn about the angels of mercy, how the angels of mercy walk the earth, listening to what we say, gathering greetings of peace, to take back to our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And also we learn that blessing his family with that tashahud, reciting that dua sharif. You better learn it. For those of you who don't know it, you better learn it, because Allah is going to ask you, why didn't you know the tashahud? You've been Muslim 100 years and you don't know the tashahud? Shame on you. The Prophet Muhammad taught us how to say it. You need to learn it. This is why Muslims don't have love for him. Why is it that Muslims don't follow the Sunnah? Why is it that Muslims are not living their lives like the companions did? Because we have no love for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The simple fact that most Muslims today can't recite the tashahud is proof of it. Shame. All right. Also, another way to develop and show allegiance to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is to protect his honor and reputation. Now, this is for people who do have love for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we're going to talk about this a little bit here. To hold on and keep the honor and reputation of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is another obligation for us. But the only people who do it effectively and do it correctly are those of us who truly love him. Let me talk about that. You got these Muslims, I remember in Europe, every time this fitna happens in Europe, where some Caucasian who don't know nothing draws a picture and say, this is Muhammad. Well, they don't even know how he look. He don't look nothing like them pictures anyway. But they draw these pictures and say, this is Muhammad. You got these uneducated Muslims in Europe who feel the need to try to defend him. But they end up transgressing the limits. They end up making themselves and making us as a nation look worse than the person that drew the picture. How does that happen? Because we're ignorant. You're defending someone that you really have no love for. Because if you truly love the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you would do everything the way he taught us to do it. He taught us how to defend him. And we don't defend him by going around blowing up buildings, killing people. We don't defend him by transgressing the limits of Allah like that. We defend him with everything. It's with dignity, humility, and balance. Where's the dignity? Where's the humility? Where's the balance? These brothers are not defending nobody. They're making us look like barbarians. They don't know what love is. They have no love for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam because they're disgracing him. They're making matters worse. Well, for those of us who truly have love and allegiance to him, leave it for us to defend him, because we defend him in the right way. We defend him by teaching his sunnah. We defend him by speaking out positively about him to others. We defend him by proving the haters wrong in a good way through our lectures, through our actions, through our commitment to this deen. Okay, we don't go to the level or lower than the level of the idiots. Okay, like these brothers were doing over there. But it is an obligation for us to protect his honor, but it has to be done rightly. We debunk the false claims. Okay? We disseminate the lies. We prove the lies wrong, just like I did with my lecture on the marriage of the Prophet Muhammad to Aisha, radiallahu anha. He wasn't no pervert. I proved what happened. And I proved that not only was he not a pervert, nor were other men not perverts too. This is how marriage was done in the dark ages, in the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, so on centuries. This is what they did. Children were married at the age when they were born, but they weren't having sex. They didn't become husband and wife officially until the children were puberty. And in Islam, the children agreed. So, you know, this is how we put to rest, you know, the liars and the haters by proving how ignorant they are. Okay. In a good way, not the way that these terrorist guys do. So again, it takes knowledge. Everything we do, it takes knowledge of the Prophet. Again, you have to know about him. How can you protect him, his honor? How can you defend his reputation if you have no knowledge of him, knowledge of his wives, knowledge of anything else? So this is really for those of us who already have the love and the allegiance to him. It's our job to protect and defend his honor and reputation in the right way. Okay? Because again, defending him requires faith, affection, devotion, and knowledge. Okay? For those of us who have that, then we can do it the right way. I want y'all to listen to what Anas ibn Malik said. He said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, none of you will become a believer until you love me more than your children, your father, and your people. When you defend your family, you're going to defend them in the right way. Well, he's deserving of that even more so. Okay? Just like you wouldn't make your family look like criminals by speaking ignorantly and behaving ignorantly, the same should be considered when you're defending him. Okay? So this is really something that I say is for those of us who have already developed that love. Because I have noticed as a dawah, you know, over all these years of giving dawah, you know, that the people that call themselves defending him, who have no knowledge of him, they do more harm than good. And they need to just shut up and sit down and leave it for the rest of us who do know how and do have the love. Okay? And another way to develop allegiance to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, again, is to learn what his teachings and follow them. Our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he arrived in Medina, he announced to the Muslims, because Medina became the first Islamic state. He said, I was sent here to teach you good manners. And by teaching you good manners and good morality, in turn, I am teaching you Islam. We need to learn that. We need to learn those manners, those morals that the Prophet taught, because his whole dawah centered around that, centered around morality. It's centered around behavior, your actions with others. He emphasized justice. He emphasized compassion, empathy. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, everyone from my nation will enter paradise except those who refuse to enter it. And when he made this statement, one of the companions said, who would be stupid enough to refuse? The Prophet said, you'd be surprised. He said, those who obey me will enter paradise. The ones who disobey me are those who have refused it. So he emphasized good character. He emphasized good manners. Learn what good character, good manners consist of in Islam. It's an obligation to change the condition of yourself to that which is pleasing to Allah. For those of us who don't take the steps to do that, these are the people that are refusing to enter into paradise, guys. We have to make that change. Okay? So learn his teachings. Learn what he emphasized. Learn how to pray the way he taught us to pray. Because he taught us how to pray to better ourselves in our prayer, so our concentration remains intact, and also to bring about the most blessings we can get through that prayer. So learn to pray and do everything the way he taught. Okay? Remember, true devotion to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam entails accepting his teachings in their totality and without reservation. And by obeying him and following him in his teachings, this is how we show love, devotion, and submission. Okay? So I'm going to stop right here for today. Tomorrow we're going to continue because, as you can see, we pick up with more things. There's more things that we can do that in turn will help us to develop our love for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and that allegiance to him. I want to really emphasize learning his life story. Learning his life story. That's why I am teaching the heroines of Islam. My cousin Mukhtar is teaching about the Prophet Muhammad and the first 4 caliphs. Learn, because when you learn his story, learn about him as a man, learn about him as a husband, learn about him as a friend, as a prophet. This is how we get to know him and develop deep affection and allegiance to him, where you wouldn't even think of celebrating a birthday or doing anything that he said not to do. Okay? Shaving the beard or anything else. Okay, I'm going to stop right here. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Are there